Hello everybody, let's talk about video games and music. Specifically, let's talk about indie devs and the musicians that provide music for them. First, the good news. Music is super powerful. If you can, you should definitely put music into your games. It takes your games from feeling like a toy to feeling like a game. It makes them feel super professional and deep. So you should definitely put music in your games. And it's pretty easy to do. There's lots of music available for free, and there's also music available on the cheap from the asset store. So you don't have to break any laws to put music in your game. You can buy this stuff pretty cheap, or you can get it for free, and that's what I've done here. This is stuff I've bought on the asset store. Unfortunately, that is where the good news ends, because as powerful and important as music is, it's also a huge burden. Not because of any technical reason, but because of YouTube. Some of you may not realize it, but your indie game sells entirely based on YouTube. Your indie game lives and dies based on how much YouTube coverage you get. Some of that comes from personalities like Jim Sterling or Total Biscuit or Scott Manley. If they cover your game, you're going to get a lot of installs. It doesn't even matter whether your game is free or your game is paid. They will be what drives your install base. And you can certainly appeal to a lot of more traditional media outlets like Kotaku or whatever. They will also sometimes cover your game, but even if they do, they're going to put in a YouTube video. So basically, YouTube is where your game lives and dies. And this same basic idea is also true on places like Twitch or streaming video from any location. Video is what makes your game live and die, but YouTube is definitely the hub. Unfortunately, YouTube uses a content ID system. It's important to understand what this is and how it works if you plan to do any game dev or if you're a musician planning to sell to game developers. Way back in the day, the music industry reigned supreme, but along came things like Napster and other file-sharing programs, and their profits went from obscene to merely ludicrous. And they decided to buy some laws to help them out with it. One of the laws they bought was the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which had a whole bunch of nonsense in it, and it was a ridiculous law even when it came out. But the thing that they were using and abusing right off the bat was their ability to send out takedown notices. And they sent out a lot of takedown notices. They created robots, software bots, to send out takedown notices for them, and they just spammed the world with takedown notices. This was illegal. There was specific rules in the DMCA that prevented them from doing that, but they ignored those rules and they started to spam them anyway. And people started to call them out on it, and they realized that they probably needed to take a different approach or they might have to go to court. So instead, they went out to each of the content hosts and asked for a personal a piece of software to do this job for them that didn't involve the DMCA and could just be on the side, you know, no legal stuff. And YouTube folded immediately and created the Content ID system. The Content ID system is a YouTube rule. It has nothing to do with law. So you can't violate law by having a YouTube content claim because there's no law involved. You can't rely on fair use on a YouTube content claim because fair use is something that applies when you're using the video. When it's YouTube hosting it, they can follow whatever rules they want and they can be far more strict, do whatever they need to. Because it's a corporate rule, you have no legal recourse. Obviously, this was a huge, huge problem, and they started to abuse it immediately. You can post whatever kind of snippets you want into YouTube's Content ID system, and any video that contains those snippets or anything vaguely close to those snippets now belongs to you. So if John creates a 4-hour-long video on the colonization of Mars and he uses Highway to the Danger Zone for 30 seconds, then congratulations, Warner Brothers or whoever owns Highway to the Danger Zone now owns that video and can post ads on it or whatever you would like. And if John was hoping to post ads on his own video and make some money back on that massive amount of effort he put into creating the video, well, he's screwed because he can't do anything about it. There's no legal recourse. He cannot really depend on anything to happen there. Obviously, this was abused and is still abused. NASA has a really hard time posting anything on YouTube because anyone who covers a NASA video, like for example if NASA launches a rocket and Fox News plays it in the background, then Fox News will register their clip with YouTube, and now NASA finds that they have a copyright strike because Fox News played their video in the background. This sort of thing is super common, and I get copyright claims a fair amount for things that don't have any music in them at all, but someone has copyrighted the sound of my air conditioner or whatever causes the claim. YouTube has been cleaning it up for a while, but there are still some pretty serious holes, and one of those holes is indie musicians. If you are an indie musician and you sell a product to an indie game dev, and that indie game dev has to rely on people posting YouTube videos, what happens when those YouTube videos all get reaped by that indie musician? What happens when you make a game and Scott Manley comes along and says, okay, well, I'm going to spend 2 hours playing the game and 4 hours editing it and put it together and make it look nice and talk about the game, and I'm going to put it up, and suddenly that video is owned by a musician that's completely unrelated to the process and that you have the rights for. There's no legal reason why he should be able to claim that video, but he can because of the YouTube's content ID system, and because in YouTube's house you play by YouTube's rules. You cannot use music that is in the content ID system. If you do, you will not be able to sell your game ever, because anyone who tries to cover your game will get hit with a copyright claim. Because of that, I always reach out to musicians that I'm going to use the music, and I always ask them, do you use the Content ID system? And once in a while it goes wrong. For example, this exact musician here, his name is Michael Lamanna. You may have noticed I actually posted a very aggressive video about it yesterday. He's one of my favorite musicians on the Asset Store, and he's quite affordable for what he does, and I used a lot of his music, and then suddenly all of my videos got flagged. And anyone who posted a video about my project got their videos flagged. Legally, that's not supposed to happen, because I have the rights to use that music, and anyone who's posting about my game is posting about the game as a product, and the music is not extricable from that. But in YouTube's house, you play by YouTube's rule. Their Content ID system hits those, and away they go. And a lot of people are like, well, you know, they can always claim, counterclaim and try and break free, but it's the first days that matter most, so that is not a good way to do it. If you are a musician, I can't imagine the kinds of pressures that are on you to try and keep your music off of YouTube. It's almost impossible. YouTube is a beast. More illegal music goes up on YouTube than has been created in all of humanity's history up till now. And it's ridiculous, but in order to sell to indie game devs, you have to not use Content ID systems, because the indie game devs will go out of business because they used your product. You cannot allow that. And indie game devs, you can't allow that either. Obviously, you don't want to go out of business because you used someone's product. So double check when you use music. Make sure that you have the rights to use it, and make sure that it's not in YouTube's Content ID system. I'm happy to say that Michael Lamanna does not use the Content ID system anymore, and I'm also happy to say that he seems like he's a lot more patient than I am. I presumed he was a troll because I get dozens of copyright claims, and they're almost always trolls. In fact, I've never gotten one that was legit. So, until now. Even this one really wasn't legit. So, he seems like a good guy, and his music is good, and surprisingly patient. But he went through something that I hope other musicians never have to go through. Please don't use YouTube's copyright ID system if you are going to sell your music to indie devs.